let's say somebody says, I would like to work with you. What I think is really important is I say, look, that's great. The first step that I have before we even sign is to have a compatibility call. And that's essentially a call together to deep dive into where you're at, where you'd like to be, the kind of support you need, and really and truly to see if I can work with you. And if I can, I'll tell you how I work. I'll go through all the details and you can make a decision then. So that's kind of like what a summary is. And I think it's really important to, as I said, if somebody wants to work with you, to say, let's have a compatibility call. And if they say, okay, right, yeah, that feels good, take their email or WhatsApp or whatever contact details you want and say, it's perfect. I will follow up to set up a meeting. And I do these calls over Zoom. I do all my work remotely. So I say, cool, I'll follow up to schedule in some time together and to send you a Zoom link. So I do exactly that. I break away then. I give them some space. I follow up then and I say, look, I'd love to set some time aside for this compatibility call, which we'll do over Zoom. We fix a time. And I actually, in advance of the call, I send them a little delighted to have this confirmed. Just as a heads up, the call might run for up to 30 minutes or an hour, whatever suits you. I'd love you to set yourself up in somewhere where you can speak freely, away from prying ears and a distraction. And in advance of the call, I'd love you to have a think for yourself in terms of where you're at, where you'd like to be, and the kind of support you need. That will help us get the most from the call. So I kind of give them a little bit of prep so they can think about it. And as I said, the conversation can move efficiently. Essentially, they know what to expect. I generally like to send them a bit of a reminder an hour before the meeting, just because some people can get distracted, and you want people being as present and as primed for these calls as possible. As I said, I have the calls over Zoom. That's easiest for me because I can have them from wherever I am. And the compatibility call, really, as I said, I've already kind of gone through it. For me, I want to know who the person is that's saying they want to work with me. I want to know where they're at and get a kind of an understanding of them, where they'd like to be, and the kind of support they feel they need. And as I ask those questions, I get a clear understanding of them and where they're at. As I said, where they'd like to be, the challenges they're faced, and the kind of support they need. And from that, what I'm really trying to pull is, one, do I want to work with this person? And that is so important, that you work with people you want to work with, because that's what your best work will come from. If you ever find yourself working with someone that you don't want to work with, you will know right away that it is just not enjoyable, and it brings out the worst in you, unfortunately. The second thing that's so important is that you can actually do the work for them. And that's important. As you hear them out in terms of where they are and where they'd like to be, do you think you can genuinely help them? And an important thing to note is that, you, of course, are helping people help themselves. And your ability to do that is dictated by how much you actually feel a connection with that person. But also as well, how well you can feel they are open to the work. And that will come by how much they want to achieve the results and how realistic those results are for them. It's important for you to gauge all this. So on the compatibility calls, I'm feeling all of this out. And there's two ways those compatibility calls go. Either one, we're a good fit, in which case I let them know, look, you're a good fit. I would like to work with you. Here's how I work. And I detail out the way I work, which we've already talked about in prior calls. In my instance, if I was saying, and I'd say, look, this is great. I feel like I can work really well with you. So you're comfortable. This is an insight into how I work. I work with clients for 3 months. I charge this rate. And what that includes is a coaching call, a deep coaching call, every 2 weeks for an hour over Zoom, support through WhatsApp in between, And the knowing essentially that I've got your back, that you're not in this journey anymore on your own. I'm here in support of you. That's my offering. And I generally, I say, look, I feel confident. I'd like to work with you. I feel like I can work really well with you. You've got an insight into how I work. Do you have any questions? And it's nice actually hearing what comes up for them. The key is for them to feel safe, secure, confident, and excited to work with you. If they do, it'll be a yes. If they don't, it won't. And you'll learn from that. And the next time you have a compatibility call, you'll learn to talk that little bit more into areas and hold back in others, to ultimately speaking help your clients, our prospective clients, feel more confident and excited and safe and secure with you. So I'm going to kind of pause it at that point, and I want to take a step back and say, if you don't want to work with them, if they aren't a good fit, that's fine. And all experience that I have would have me tell you, don't work with them in that instance. And it is perfectly fine for you to say, look, I actually, from everything you shared, I actually don't think we're a good fit. You can end things there, although I actually like to turn those into opportunities myself. So I have made it my business to get to know loads of coaches in varying fields that can essentially complement my weaknesses. And so I say, look, I'm sorry, I actually really don't think I'm a good fit for you in this instance, but I have somebody that I could recommend, and I think they are the right fit for you. So if you're open to it, I could make an introduction. Would you? 9 times out of 10, they are open to that introduction. And what I've actually done with all those coaches that I make recommendations to is I've said, look, if I introduce a client to you, would you be happy to give me a commission? Could be 10%, could be 20%, could be 25%, whatever. But I've actually turned the calls that aren't good for me into earners as well. And I hope you will too, because I actually think that's a real win-win, because it helps you be more genuine and work with the people that you should work with and say no when you should say no. So I always love those kind of where are the win-wins in a working relationship, and that's key. Now let's circle back to that end point with a client that you think you can work with, and you've described everything, you've opened the floor to them to ask any questions, and it's coming to the end of a compatibility call. What I like to do is I like to say, look, I think we've talked through a lot of details and there's a bit to consider, and I would invite you to consider this over 24 hours. Even if you feel like you want to make the decision now, consider it over the next 24 hours. So I'll follow up with the details so you have them, and you can then follow up with me via email. And I do that because sometimes people can get excited and over enthusiastically jump into the relationship only to realize it's not for them. And in coaching, you want to work with people that want to work with you. Realistically, they're the ones doing the work. You're facilitating them doing the work. You don't want people to sign up that aren't ready. And it is a weird kind of thing that you want to build your business, but at the same time, you're pushing work away. I assure you, have faith. The more you work with people you should work with, the better your business will grow. The more you push away people you shouldn't, the better your business will grow. But if you try to work with everybody, you'll find yourself very quickly working with nobody. So I let the call end with the knowing that I'll follow up with an email and they'll take 24 hours to consider things. So I send the details of how I work in bullet point, and I think it is really, really important that you do this. So again, you manage expectations. You make sure there's no room for misunderstanding. Everything is clear in black and white in that follow-up email. You leave them the 24 hours to make a decision, and they come back to you from there. And I that process has been fantastic for me. In that email, I also leave my bank details. So I'm like, here are the details of how I work, and if you're happy to move forward, let me know and make the payment, and we will move forward from there. Because I do think there's a bit of a divide between like, I want to work with you and I've paid the money. So it's better to put the two together. If you want to work with me, that's cool. Confirm by making the payment. Smooths the process up. And that follow-up email is really, really key. Now, I want to take it a step further because it's really, really important. I want you to leave this call with a clear knowledge of how to onboard clients and manage expectations. And that is right up to the first call. So if a client says, I want to work with you, they follow up, I want to work with you, I've made the payment, it is really important that you clearly highlight all the steps between then and the first session. So what I would say is, I'm so delighted to work with you. So things are clear. Here's how we'll move forward from here. If you had looked at like on the onboarding call, the compatibility call, if you had looked at a possible time to work together or start your first call from, you would say in that follow-up email, I'm delighted you're confirmed. We will start our working relationship on this date at this time. In advance of our work together, what I do, and what's important is that you build your own way of working, but what I like to do is I like to have the clients write an email to me to say why they want to work with me, where they're currently at, where they'd like to be, what they feel the blocks are in their way, and the kind of help they'd like from me. And so I actually let them know that. I say, look, as I said, I'm delighted we're confirmed. Your money's been received. Our first call is going to be on this date. In advance of working together, I'd love you to come back to me with these 4 questions. That's all that's needed for now. Don't worry. There's nothing else needed. You no homework to do, no assignments, no anything. If you just come back to me in this email, I'll be happy, and we'll start our work together then on that first call. We'll move forward from there. And I think that's key. I think they say that experience brings simplicity. And that's what I'm trying to share with you, that in this, if you keep the process simple, things have a nice way of moving along. Sometimes people get nervous and, for example, say, you might have said, let me know if you'd like to move forward. And they can say, I'd like to move forward. That's perfect. Can you follow up and pay this way? And, suddenly instead of those 2 things being 1, they're now 2 steps. And what I've tried to do is help you clean up the process between somebody saying they want to work with you and that they're actually working with you. And the resistance is important and valuable and everything, but that is as smooth a line as I've been able to achieve with my experience. And I would encourage you to look for simplicity in the flow of somebody being interested in working with you and actually working with you. Sometimes people make their clients go through way too many hoops, and it's off-putting. People at the end of the day are coming to you because they're feeling a weight, feeling a burden. They have too much going on. They don't have enough time. They need help. And for some reason, some coaches decide to put them through the hoops and to challenge them and plonk loads of work on them. That's not what this is about, in my belief. And I hope you can take something really good and valuable from there. And I'll just look forward to following up with you next week. But as always, if there's any questions, if there's any little bits, observations, thoughts that you want to follow up with me on, I am here. And enjoying this process, hopefully as much as you. So feel free to reach out, and otherwise I'll see you next week. Thank you.